I'll get started now. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. I'm just displaying now. So today's training, we're going to focus on the testing components of TransIT. So our different training classes have been broken down into 3 different sessions, session types, I should say. So we have the admin training, which is just for those that are set up as administrators in TransIT. So the kind of org settings, kind of back of house sort of idea. The testing training, so that's going to be building out your test scripts, so tasks, workflow, scenarios, and then how to execute a round of testing. And then we'll also look at the reports as well. And then our third session type is focused on plans. So today's training session, we're going to focus on how to update and modify any global tasks that you bring into your organization and workflows as well, how to create new content that's specific to your organization or things that we don't currently have inside TransIT. Also the new functionality around scenarios and updating how you bring in a spreadsheet, because we no longer, excuse me, do uploading spreadsheets. It's much easier function now. And then, like I said, the testing component. So everyone should be able to see, I have here sign into, and then there's a hyperlink for our demonstration domain. So today's training is intended to be interactive. So hopefully everybody can take a moment to sign into our demo organization. And so Internet Explorer is not going to be supported by TransIT, since Microsoft in general seems to be moving away from Internet Explorer. So we did experience in our admin training earlier today that those who signed in to Internet Explorer did not quite have the same functionality that they were supposed to have. So if you can just make sure you're signing into a different browser. So you'll be signing in with your same username that you normally sign into with TransIT, except in this case, you're going to be signing in with the password TransIT5. So same username and then the password TransIT5. And so then I just listed here a few kind of tips and tricks that was sent to me from our development team and that you're going to see. I'm going to mention carried through the entire training session, but overall, when you right-click the table header, you get additional actions. You'll see there's far fewer icons and hyperlinks. It's much more options from a right-click menu. So right-clicking a row gives you additional actions. Click a row, hold shift, and select another row to multi-select between different windows. Click a row, hold control, and click another row to select multiple individually. You can, some rows you can double click to make changes. Others you can't, which we'll kind of go through as well. Some have some additional hyperlinks. There's some cases where additional windows open. For example, when you're updating a task from inside a workflow, it's going to now open an additional tab for you. Using Control-C and Control-V now work amongst different screens as well. There's paste to the clipboard and then paste from the clipboard options to make it easier to get things from Excel into TransIT much quicker. So I'm going to start off. This is our demo login page. It looks slightly different than our current TransIT login page. So you're going to put your email address in, you're going to use the password TransIT5 and then click to log in. when you do that, everybody for the first time logging into TransIT is going to get this terms of service page. So on the terms of service page, you have the Make Solutions privacy policy PDF, and then there's also the terms of service PDF. And once you've read those and you accept our terms, you'll just select that you've accepted our terms, and then so you'll check the box and then you'll click accept, which is going to bring you into your projects page. So it looks like someone has their hand up. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm it. Somebody wants the URL.
Okay.
Jen, could you tell me the password again?
It's TransIT 5. That'll be the password for everybody. Okay. So then once you log in, it's going to bring you to your projects page. The first thing that sorry?
Somebody just had echo. You can keep going.
Okay. So again, that the terms of service and privacy is only going to show the first time that you sign into TransIT. So as soon as you accept it, you're not going to see that that again. The first change you'll notice when you log into TransIT is there's no longer the gear icon displayed beside your name hyperlink in the top right-hand corner. Your name is still a hyperlink, but when you click on your name, instead of it just changing your password, it brings you to the user settings page. And so from this page, the top options here are your notification settings. So for if you're participating in a round of testing and you are the person up next in the round of testing, or if there's an issue that's assigned to you, things like that, you'll be sent an email just like you currently have inside TransIT. And so you want to make sure under your email notifications that you do have it checked to email you when you're needing to be notified. By default, it's going to put in your email address into the emails to send to field. But what you can do if you want to type in a different email address, so let's say for whatever reason you're using a different email address and you want the notification sent to a different email address, it is a free text field that you're welcome to type in anything that you want, and it will retain whatever you put in there last. So as example, I'm currently signed in with a demo user myself, but because last time I was in here, I put my personal email address into the email sent to, it's retained that information for me there. There's also the option to select to receive messages from text. That has not been turned on yet, but it is still good to enter this information because if you're participating in a round of testing, this information will be populated to your roster list. And so if someone participating in testing needs to get a hold of you by phone, they'll be able to have your phone number to contact you to be able to reach you for testing. The next section of your user settings is the roster section. So your roster status is just going to be the status of what it is you're up to in TransIT. So I'm going to say training, because I'm in training. So it says I'm training. That's my status for today. Again, this will retain for each login until you change it. So that's just a free text field. The next is positions, which would be positions that you're going to be participating as during a round of testing. If you click this position icon here, it's going to open the position coverage window. So let's say during the round of testing, I'm going to be responsible for the EDRN steps. I can type EDRN into that search field and press enter. I could also press the magnifying glass here, and then I can select the EDRN from this window here. Once I've selected whatever I'd like, I can click save. And then it's going to retain that information here. I will show you when we get to testing where that kind of comes into play, but that is information that's going to be saved into the roster, and then also for the test steps for a round of testing. And then at the bottom here, you've got your option to change your password. It is still not character specific, so you still have the freedom to type whatever password you like into these fields here, and then you can click save, and it will retain whatever information you've entered into your user settings. So now I'm going to go back home. And the home page is always going to be your projects page. So the projects page does look slightly different than it did before. To see the options from the right-click menu, it's got the option to inactivate a project or export to Excel. It also gives you the option to filter. So let's say this was a longer list here and I wanted to filter to only specific projects. I could type into this filter field, press enter, and it's going to filter to only show me the projects that match whatever filter information that I entered. That's going to be, that sort of functionality is going to be carried across everywhere in TransIT. So each kind of header is going to have these filter options, which may be slightly different depending on which window you're actually under, but we'll go through that. And then beside the filter icon, you'll see that there's the sort option to sort either alphabetically or by date, oldest to newest, whichever sort options you want to have on. If I want to get rid of this filter, I can just click X, and now it's given me back everything that I need. If I am wanting to, let's say I'm creating a new project and I want to copy certain tasks from my project into, from current state into my project, I can go or from one project to another, whichever is appropriate in your situation. So I'm going to just go here. I'm going to filter on only certain tasks, and I will get more in depth in that. I'm just showing you how to copy from one to another. So I can select the first task I want to copy. I can hold shift and select the last copy, and it's highlighted all the tasks in between. And then I can right click and I can select copy. I could also do Control C, whichever you prefer. And then I'm going to go back to my home page. I can then go into my other project that I want to paste into. I can right click the header and I can select to paste. So it looks like some are already in there, but that's all you would do. It's very simple. So before it was a hyperlink that said, or an icon that said copy to, and you had to select which project you wanted to select to copy into. So now it's made it much quicker and easier for you to be able to copy tasks from one project to another. I'm going to go back to my current state code.
Hey, Angela, can I just say something quickly?
Yep.
So this area that we're in is a complete copy of your production system, but it's just a play area. So everybody is free to do whatever they want anywhere, and it's not going to impact any of your production data. It will get wiped out. So don't do anything that you intend to keep because it won't ever end up in production.
But yes, we definitely want you to be hands-on and trying out all the clicks. either as I go, or we'll take moments to kind of practice everything. But we really want you to be able to walk away from this training and be able to be comfortable with what the clicks are. I don't want
Okay, can I ask a question?
Of course.
When you copy and pasted it into the new one, and it, you know, some of them were already there, and you're copying in extra ones, will it only copy it once, or will it re-enter it in there as a duplicate?
It will not duplicate it. It will not. It'll not allow you to duplicate the task.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's of course by design, because we know that from our global content, there's very likely places where you would be making updates to the task, and so you'd want to make sure that whatever is being copied from one place to another, that if you had steps that were different in the other project, that they're not getting written over by the pace that you're attempting to do. So just taking a look at the task page, there's a few kind of differences that we'll see here. So as I mentioned, quite a few less icons than previous. The only icons that we have here from the task page, the first one is the import from global. So the import from global is a little bit different now. So if I click the import from global, you can see that it opens the import tasks and workflows page. So even though I'm under tasks at the moment, I can import workflows from here. One thing that's very nice is that when you import a workflow at this point in 5.0, it's going to bring in all of the tasks. So if there were certain tasks that didn't exist yet in your organization that were in the workflow, it's going to automatically import all tasks and the workflows that you're asking for it to. Whereas before, if the task, you had to make sure that you were importing tasks first, because if you imported a workflow and some of the tasks weren't imported yet, the workflows would just be missing those tasks. So it's much easier now that all of it is kind of contained in one spot. So what you can do then, when you go here to search, obviously you want to make sure you search first to see, you know, if there's stuff that already exists, because you don't need to try and import stuff that already exists. But just like with the copy situation, if you ask to import a workflow that already exists in your, or a task that already exists in your organization, the system is just going to know, and it's going to not import that workflow because it already knows that it's in your build. So there's also an icon here that you can see. This icon indicates that it's a workflow. So if I was to search on workflows only, and I did, let's just do this, you can see that all of these are telling me that they're all workflows because I selected to see workflows only. So if I then...
And that would show you only workflows only, right?
Yes, if I've asked for it to, or if I take that checkbox off, you can see that these ones are all just tasks, whereas this one specifically is a workflow. So you also have a lot of filter and sort capabilities from in here. Before there were, I guess, hyperlinks that you could click, but it's much easier now. So let's say I'm just going to stick with Cerner because that seems easiest. I can filter there, so it's only showing me the results for Cerner in this particular case. If I want to, so even though it does say that this is importing, it is going to show you both the content that already exists in your domain, and then also include global if you're wanting to see the global content. So let's say I want to look at only workflows that are available in global. And I'm going to just do so I had two checkboxes selected, both for the workflows only and for including global. So if we look here, we can see that there are two workflows showing for this 1487. You can see that beside the second option, it's showing me that this is the global. And then you can see that this one, because it doesn't have the globe, it's the workflow that already exists in your build. So you know that because it already exists in your content here, that you don't need to select it. You would only need to be selecting ones that have the globe selected if you were finding things that were missing from your build. So again, I had the filter option here. I can get rid of that filter. And now it's showing me all of the workflows, not just Cerner ones. You can also see when I hovered my cursor over one of the workflows, it's showing me all of the tasks, all the steps that are included in that workflow. So before you actually import, you have an opportunity to look, okay, what is this workflow actually looking like before you decide whether or not you want to bring that workflow in. So I'll take off the workflows and I'll just look at tasks for now. So again, you can type in that field. You can press enter and get your search information to show, or you can use the magnifying glass to do your search. I assume enter is probably the fastest for everybody, but it's whichever you're most comfortable with. So in this case, because I'm looking at, I haven't selected to look at only workflows, it's looking at both tasks and workflows. So in this case here, this task already exists in the build, but this task number 16, 497, 496, they are both global tasks, so I could select to import those if I wanted to. So I'll just select view, and I will import. And so when you go to import, what it's now going to tell you, so oftentimes, at least for myself, when I'm, let's say, setting up a new client, I will import a bunch of workflows all at one time. And so that obviously takes a moment to process exactly what's happening. So now when you do an import, it opens up this alert window to say workflows will process in the background. So you can just acknowledge that. And so, of course, as soon as it saves, your options may not be displayed there right away, but that's because they're refreshing in the background. So you could just refresh your screen and it'll then bring in all of the options that you had as soon as it finishes the processing. So another big change with the way things look from a task perspective is we no longer have the advanced search. It's now changed to a combination of being able to filter and sort your columns. So all of these columns I can filter and sort. You can also, so you could select multiple. So let's say I want to look at all the tasks that were Cerner, and then also the ones that are 3M. I can type whatever I want into that field and it's going to filter just to those tasks. So I'm just going to remove. And to remove, you just X out of those tasks or of those filter options and it removes them. But then you also have this drop down list here. So you have this search field. And so you can type into the search field, but you can decide what you want the search field to represent. So you can either have it be representing any field. You can have it only for the name of the task, the number, and the description, only for the service or the vendor. So let's say I want to search on tasks based on a specific service. I could select from the, I could use the filter here, but I could also select this drop-down list and say I can type nursing, press enter. Now it's returned all of the tasks that are specific to nursing. So quite different when it comes to searching for content, but I think it's a little bit more kind of streamlined now. One thing that you'll notice from here, so one of the icons that no longer displays is the icon that was for showing us which scenarios a task is currently being used in. And that's because that is now held in this number column here. So the first column that's on your left-hand side. So you can see that there's a number listed beside several of these task numbers. If I hover my cursor, it's going to just give me a brief, quick view of which scenarios this particular task is being used in. If I click on it, because it is a hyperlink, if I click on it, it opens this window for me, which gives me the opportunity to go inside that scenario. So I can click on, let's say, the first scenario here. And it's taking me inside the scenario. And so we're working on getting it to take you to exactly where the task is used inside your scenario. But in the meantime, I knew I was looking at task 89. So I was able to use the filter here, type 89 in, and then it's filtered through the scenario to just show me where task 89 is used inside the scenario. When I'm finished looking at that, I can click the back arrow. And that takes me back to my task page. So one of the biggest rules inside TransIT for the past, almost 9 years now has been never ever click the back arrow, because the back arrow does nothing for you. But as you can see, now the back arrow does do exactly what you would expect it to. It takes you back to your previous location. So next is the icon for creating a new task. So that's this icon here. You can, from the project dropdown, you can create a task that's for a specific project. Task a name. The order of the vendor, service, and subservice has now been kind of switched around a little bit. So I'll just select the first option here. So it's still going to give you the same options from the vendor, service, and subservice. So again, if you're looking in your build right now and you're seeing slightly different options than what I'm currently seeing, it's because you're going to be seeing exactly your build as it should be for your particular organization, where of course I'm looking at our demo organization for now. So you can select whatever you'd like from the service and subservice drop-down list and just give it a description. So I'm obviously not going to get into all the nitty-gritty of how to really create tasks. I'm just going to focus on the changes that we see. So of course, as usual, when you've created the name and description of your task, it brings you to the task steps page. So one difference from this perspective is that we used to have a tasks page or sorry, that's from the workflow perspective. From here, it's still going to be just your steps. So because this is a brand new task, of course, there's no steps available yet. I can click the icon to create a new step. One of the biggest changes when it comes to tasks is that there's no longer roles. So I know sometimes I had people that were a little bit confused because at the task level you are selecting a role, yet when you're going to insert your task or workflow into a scenario, you are selecting a position. But now neither of those things happen at the task level. At the task level, you're not selecting either a position or a role. You just leave that blank, because then when it comes to inserting the task into either a workflow or a scenario, you're going to have the option to select from every single position that exists inside your build. So I think that that's probably one of the exciting features for those that work on building scenarios. And so then you'll still have the same kind of from your product, application, and function drop-down list. One of the big changes here is, I guess several releases ago, or I guess I should say several years ago now, we added the functionality where you put a header field inside brackets, and when used inside a scenario, the step is telling the scenario to pull the information from the header. And so at a task level, you had to type bracket, patient name, end bracket. Whereas now has been stored in these drop-down lists here. So instead, I can type P in here and I can select patient name. And when I do that, it automatically gives me that field here. So no more typing bracket, field name, bracket. It's just going to automatically bring that in for you. The details still works as expected, just clicking the details and it gives you details with the number. From the other fields, so all the header fields, it doesn't give you a number. So if I was to select patient name again from the drop-down list, it's not going to give me patient name too. In that case, if it's a header field, you do need to click in here and add the number there. That does make sense, because when you're building out a scenario, you have to be very specific about kind of which field number you're at. So from a task perspective, it's just a single add the field and it's going to automatically bring it in for you. And the same is going to be available in the outcomes. So nice time saver there. And so when you click save, it's obviously going to give you your step down here. To edit your step now, instead of the link that was on the right hand side, it's right click. So basically anything that you're trying to do from TransIT is either a right click from the header or it's a right click from the step of wherever you're at. So in this case, you're going to edit your step. You also have the option to, if you don't want to open this, to go to edit, you can select to change something specific from these options here. But it's going to be the same. So I'm going to edit my step and it still just looks kind of as you'd expect it to look when you're editing a step inside TransIT. I will go back. Okay, so that's mostly it for just things from a task perspective. Are there any questions about editing tasks or anything I covered in regards to tasks.
When you were adding the different steps and where you were doing the add details, so can you just click on that add details to get the details to pop in, or do you have to click the down arrow to select it?
If you're wanting it to be details, it's just clicking the details, just like how it currently is. So if I just keep clicking this, it'll just keep giving me more details fields. But if I'm wanting to do one of the other fields, then it's obviously the drop-down list to get the specific field that we're looking for.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so again, just a reminder that with the header fields, you'll never get a number in here. So I could try and add appointment location. I could add something else, and then I could try to add appointment location again, and it's still gonna just think it's the first one. So if you're adding multiple of a specific field type, you do need to free type the number inside there. But for the most part, I don't think you need to add numbers at a task level inside the action or the outcome.
Angela, could you use details and a bracket? Does it make a difference? Or you use either or?
So from the task level, it's just going to be the kind of placeholder field. But when you're in either a workflow or the scenario, you can insert your details here. And then from the step perspective, you can still type the bracket field in there from kind of like the blue text, how it was before.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah, that same functionality still exists. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, I'm going to move on to workflows then. Okay. So workflows is going to look very much the same, I guess, as the tasks page. So the exact same import icon is shown here. And because tasks and workflows have now been kind of combined into the same import window, it's going to look and function exactly how I just showed you. It's just essentially a different access point when it comes to import, because you can import both tasks and workflows at the same time. It also has the same sort of search option. So you can either search by any field, whatever field you want. You can search based on the name of the workflow or based on the vendor. So I'll just enter Cerner. So again, it's a type and either press enter or click the magnifying glass, and then it's filtered to show me all of the workflows that are specific to Cerner. I could have also come here. So I've already searched on that, but I could have also typed Cerner into this field here, and that would have worked as well. You can still, I know that I often have recommended to have your sort set to be having the most recently updated tasks or workflows brought to the top of your screen. And so you can still do that by clicking the sort icon that's displayed in the side there. So clicking it once brings the oldest to the top, clicking it a second time brings the newest to the top. So at the moment, at the kind of bottom of my screen here, you can see that it's saying pages 1 to 6. So there's no longer the page size where it says like 30, 100, or all. That's been removed. Those hyperlinks have been removed. Instead, what you'll see, and this again carries across multiple different screens, so in case I forget to mention it on other screens, the majority of screens have this. You right-click your header and you do page size all. So when I do page size all, it's of course going to bring everything all onto one page. And you can see now I'm all on one page and everything is kind of going here now. So just like I had shown previously with the number column, showing where workflows, I showed where tasks are used in scenarios, the same is available at the workflow level. So I can click, I can see that this particular workflow is being used in the scenario violent patient. So I can click this link here. I can then click my scenario that it's in. And then I can come to the filter here, and I know it was workflow 79. Oh, sorry, I need to. And I can type. Okay. Oh, there we go. So there it's showing me this is workflow number 79 that I filtered on from my workflows page, and now I can see that's where the workflow is used in this particular scenario. So if I click the back button, that's going to, I can click workflows to go back to my workflows. So keep in mind, we are still making a few kind of tweaks along the way here because we're not going live yet. So there are a couple things that may not work quite as expected, but we are working on those for when we turn things on, when we go live on the 29th. So going inside a workflow, I'm gonna go back for a second. I'm going to be biased. I'm more comfortable with our Cerner content that's out there, so I'm going to filter there. And I can go inside my workflow here. So previously, when you clicked on the workflow name, it would take you to the workflow tasks page. So you would have kind of like the outside of the task listed out here. So you just see the task name with the task number, and that no longer exists. The workflow task page no longer exists. We only have the workflow steps page, which is much better anyways, because that's really the view that people are interested in anyways. But we do have in a column here, it shows exactly what all of the tasks are that are making up this workflow. So it was asked if the header fields can still be typed into a details field. So you can see that instead of just the brackets details, it now says click to add details. So if I was to click that link here, it now opens me up a details window. And so if I wanted to use, I don't know what task If I wanted to use my header fields in here, I can add them here, and it's still going to function as it previously did. So I type my details in, I click save, and now you can see that those details have been retained inside the workflow level. To edit a step, it is now right click and edit the, I can edit a task from within a workflow. So if I wanted to edit a specific task, rather than clicking, before it was, you could click the task hyperlink and it would take you inside to that task. It's now a right click and I can edit task. As soon as you do that, so because this task is inside a workflow, and the workflow is currently being used inside these two scenarios, it's automatically going to give you a warning that if you edit this workflow, you're going to be affecting these two scenarios here. So make sure whatever the change is going to be applicable in both cases. So it always kind of gives you that warning. And so you accept your warning. And what it does now is it actually opens a second tab for you. So if I wanted to be able to go back and forth between my task and my workflow, I can easily do that because it's now opened in a different tab window. And then you can see that it's going to operate just like the task page because it is the task step here. So it's going to be the same right click to edit, make whatever edits that you needed to make to your particular task. So we do still have the same kind of functionality, like if you needed to duplicate a task. So let's say you had kind of multiple steps in a row that happened that were very similar, but there was just kind of one little tweak that you had to make on each. You could duplicate each step and then just edit the duplicated step. So it's all the same kind of functionality, just different access points now, much more right click than hyperlinks and icons. As soon as you inactivate anything, whether you're on the task page, inside a task step, as soon as you inactivate anything, it's of course going to give you a notification to let you know you're inactivating whatever it is you're inactivating. It removes it from your view. And then if you needed to get back to it, you're going to right click the header here. And then you're going to view inactive. So wasn't the best example because I duplicated, so it's the exact same step, but you can see the way it's kind of dithered out. It's I'm in the inactive step view here. And so let's say I wanted to reactivate this particular step. It's again a right click and it's a restore. And then right click the header and view active steps. And so now I've got both of my steps back. I'll just leave this, it's nonsense. If you were wanting to copy from one task to another, so I'm in a workflow at the moment, but we can still do it from this particular view. So I can either right click here and I can select copy, or as it notifies you here, I could also select it and then just do a Control C on my clip or on my keyboard, whichever kind of way you prefer to operate. So I can copy my step here. And then, hold on, because I'm sharing my screen, my presenting bar is blocking me, but I will close this. So I copied from the one task. I closed that tab, so that second tab window that was open because I was editing a task, it's now closed, and I'm still back in the workflow that I was previously in, and I had copied this step from that particular task. And let's say I want to paste it into the next task that is in my workflow. it's the same thing. So I'm going to edit the task. It's going to tell me what I'm affecting by doing that. And then there, sorry. So I then did a paste to end. So it's copied these steps from my previous task into here. So if you're wanting to copy steps from one task to another, it's still functionality that's available to you. It's just available from your right click menu. So I don't really want this step in here, so I'm going to inactivate it. And again, because I am currently inside a workflow and I had opened to edit a single task from inside a workflow, I did it in that other window that I need to close. So I'm going to, let's see, do an import to show. In here. Fortunately, it looks like I brought everything. I do that from a different project, so it doesn't have everything. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so I searched and I selected my workflows only and my include global. So I would then search my list here. So I'm gonna just import stuff from this jellyfish vendor. So I did my search and I'm going to refine my search to only be for a specific vendor. And I can see because the globe is showing here that none of these tasks none of these workflows have been imported into my particular project. So I can either go through and select individually the options that I want, or I can select all and it's going to bring in everything that's shown here. So because all of these tasks have a number, or all of these workflows have a number of tasks that are included inside them, it's obviously going to take a little bit for me to import all of this. But so I've selected all of the options and then I'm going to click import. And so because I'm doing an import, it tells me that these things are going to happen in the background. So I can click OK. And so even though this system is thinking right now, because it's actually importing a whole bunch of content, both tasks and workflows, it doesn't prevent me from continuing on with my work because it's actually just doing those things in the background. So I'm going to now search. So I used my filter and now I filtered onto just kind of those workflows that I brought in. And you can see that now all of these workflows have been imported into my particular project. And if we go to click and look at one of the workflows, you can see that all of the tasks were brought in at the same time. So it's a huge, huge time saver to be able to have all of that happen at once, rather than make sure you bring in all of your tasks and then bring in your workflows. So if you're someone who's been responsible for importing content, that's certainly something that you can appreciate. So I mentioned that positions are not selected at the task level, but positions can be selected at a workflow level. So let's say this particular workflow here is pretty much always done by someone who's, let's say, either a registration clerk or a scheduling type of position. So I've selected the first task in my workflow. Then I'm going to hold shift and select the last task in the workflow. And then I'm going to right click. And then I can select to change the position or assign a position, I could say. So when that happens, it's telling me you're changing 7 steps at a time. I select the position drop-down list, and I can select something from the list here. So let's say, and if you click more, it's obviously going to give you, so this is the full list of every single position that's currently created in this particular organization. But so let's say we're going to have this be the scheduling clerk. I want to assign the scheduling clerk to be the person who does this workflow, and click save. Oh. Patty, are you on? I guess not. So that should have selected it for all of them, but I'll have to log that to make sure that that's fixed, because it was working before, but it's not currently selecting it for all. But by the time we go live, you'll be able to do that to select it for every position, or sorry, every step that's in this particular workflow. And so that's definitely not something that you have to do. That's just functionality that is available to you, that you can, if there's certain workflows that are 9 times out of 10 or even more than 50% of the time done by a particular position, you can select that position at the workflow level so that you don't have to select it when the workflow is being inserted into a scenario. So that's just a way that you can save yourself some time.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So currently, when we build a task, we add the positions that will be documenting or using that in their scenario.
Mhm.
So are you saying that that's going away, and if that's currently in our task, that won't be an option anymore, and that really anybody can use that task and just add their position? Because it seems
Yeah.
like the way it is currently, like when you add it, only those positions can be used for that scenario, or for, like if I have a women's health task and I've only created that task to be used by the women's health position, someone from another team, such as like the ED, they can't use that same task in their scenario because at the task level, I said only these positions can use it. So is that functionality going away?
Yes. So now, so kind of in the sort of flip side of that, it was sometimes more time consuming where you, at the task level, you built a task to only be done by positions X, Y, and Z. And then there's, the off chance where you're inserting that task or workflow into a scenario where it's not being done by position X, Y, and Z, it's being done by position B instead. And so you had to kind of take additional steps in order to be able to add that position. So now it's just every position is going to be able to be selected for that particular task or workflow when added inside a scenario. So you still, at the task level, you can still assign the service and subservice to identify, okay, this is the task for women's health, or this is the task for ED. So it can still be assigned at the at the task level to identify and to be able to differentiate between who that task belongs to. But we were, I guess, just the changes that we made were kind of based on people's feedback. And so sometimes people were getting confused because at the task level, you're selecting the roles, whereas in the workflow level and the scenario level, you're selecting the specific position. And so people were kind of getting confused between the two, and it was also taking additional steps if the task wasn't created with the all of the necessary positions at the time it was created. So instead, we simplified it so that at both the workflow level and the scenario level, you have the option to select any position that's created inside your database.
Gotcha. Makes sense. I think we'll just have to be more cognizant, I guess, of if that's the service solution when we're adding tasks to scenarios.
Yeah, you'll definitely need to make sure you're taking advantage of the filters that are there for you. And also that's one of the reasons why things like those warnings were added, where if you're making a change, so not as big of a deal if you're adding it to the scenario, but if you're making a change to a task that quote unquote doesn't belong to you, it gives you that warning to say, okay, this task is being used in these 5 scenarios. So if you make a change to that task, you're affecting all of these scenarios. So there's more, I guess, freedom in adding the different positions, but there's much more warnings around kind of what's happening inside TransIT.
Gotcha.
So I
yes,
think
I do like the warnings and think that will help for sure. That's great.
Yes, I think so too. And I think that I'm confident that that you're gonna, after you get used to it, agree that it's probably better functionality. I think it's just something that's going to be a bit of a learning curve, especially to those who've been operating inside TransIT for years and years now. But I think we've certainly taken every effort we could to not just take away functionality, but instead to offer superior functionality instead, and based again on kind of comments that people have made over the years, or issues that people have logged over the years. So we try to make sure that the changes are based on things that we've had requested by our clients.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. So from a workflow perspective, there's not really too much different about actually creating a workflow. It's still, so now it's clicking this icon here, still giving your workflow a name, selecting the vendor and the project you want to create it in. I will create one just for the sake of it. And so, of course, it's taken me to the workflow steps page that's blank. And then you can create a new task. You can either create a new task from within the workflow steps, but you should always start by adding a task. You should always be adding something existing rather than just creating something brand new. But so when you open this window to add a step, you can search for your task here. So you can type in whatever information you want into your search and either press enter or the magnifying glass. You also have the option to include global. So let's say you're looking for tasks to add to a workflow, but you don't see the task that you were looking for, and before you want to create a brand new task, you think, well, maybe they have one that exists at the global level. So you can select this include global, and instead of just only searching your content, you can also search global content at the same time. And when you do that, it kind of bypasses the step of having to import. So if you were to select something from here and add it to your task, add it to your workflow, it's automatically going to add that task into your organization. So it kind of condenses that all into one step. So I'm going to just select this report access for the sake of it and click next. So you do have the option when you're adding the task to first identify the number of times you're wanting to add the task in case there's an opportunity where you want to add the task more than one time. You can also select the position, but it does not have to be selected at this time. And then you can click save, and it's going to automatically add that task to your workflow. So again, there's going to be certain options that are available from your right-click menu. And then other options. So you'll get two different lists. There's options from right-clicking the header, and then there's going to be options from right-clicking the task steps. So from the steps, I can edit. I could insert a task above this step. So which is obviously current functionality as well. So let's just say I want to insert this task here. It'll give me the same steps to go through. So I've inserted that task above the task that I had already had there. You'd be able to copy and paste, copy or cut and also paste. So I could, let's say I don't want this task in here. I could cut this task out of this particular workflow here, and I could paste it into a different one. So you can either use your right click and copy and then go into your other workflow and paste, or you can do the Control C from your keyboard or Control X, whichever you're wanting to do, either copy or cut, and then followed by Control V to paste. I believe that's about it from the, that's not it from the workflow perspective. So another big change is that previously, if you were wanting an interface transaction to be used inside either a workflow or a scenario, you had to add that interface transaction at the task level for it to be active at either the workflow or the scenario level. But that's no longer the case. So neither of these tasks currently have any interface transactions associated to them. But what I can do is I can right click and I can select add interface. That's going to give me the full list of interface transactions that I have for my organization. And so I can select as many or as few as I want to add to my workflow here. And then I can click save. And automatically they're added here. And also they then have this details field. So if you wanted to add something specific to the details at the workflow level for your interface, you can type whatever you want. Save, and that's going to be retained inside that workflow. So the interfaces that you see there are created by your, or maintained, I should say, by your administrators. So let's say you're trying to add an interface either to a workflow or to a scenario, and you're not seeing the option that you need. You need to touch base with whoever at your organization is set up to be an administrator, and they have the capability to go and add additional interface transactions. So we're hoping that that makes it much easier for you to be turning on and adding the interface transactions that you need for all of your different workflows and scenarios. That is all the functionality for workflows. Are there any questions about what I've just gone through on workflows? Okay, I will click this icon here to go through the clicks for that as well, I guess. So create a new task. So I'm currently inside my workflow, but let's say I did my search and it doesn't look like there's any tasks that exist either in my organization or within global content, and I do need my new task. I can click that icon there. I can create my new task. And when I do that, it then takes me into the steps page to create my new task. And you can enter whatever you like in there. It looks, well, I'm going to need to request something additional there because it should give me an option to go right back into my workflow from there, but it doesn't look like it has. So that looks like it's still something that needs to be worked on. But you can see when I've gone back into my workflow, this is the task that I had just created. So it did create the task for me. It just, there should be a click in between to get me right back to my workflow. So that I'll have to log. Okay, but are there any questions about this so far? No. Okay, so we've just covered quite a bit, I would say, on tasks and workflow. So I think we will take maybe a 10 or 15 minute break to, if people need to use the restroom, or to take this opportunity to start practicing these clicks, because I want you to be able to do the clicks yourself. And then if you run into something that you didn't expect to happen, you can then ask and kind of confirm to make sure that when you walk away from this training that you do understand exactly what all of the new clicks are. So we'll pick up again at 2:30.
Look in the.
Hey, I got a quick question.
Yes.
I'm using my email and then the password was TransIT5, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's not working for me.
Okay. And which, sorry, what was your name?
Kevin Schoolcraft,
And which organization are you with?
Charleston Air Medical Center.
Okay, so I've gone in and put your password back to Transit 5. I'm not sure if maybe when you went into user settings it changed. But
It's
let
still
me
not
know.
yeah, it's still not letting me in. It says invalid password.
And you're not in Internet Explorer, are you?
Maybe.
Okay.
I
Because
guess I have to use Chrome for this.
so I'm not sure, maybe you weren't on when I mentioned this at the beginning, but Internet Explorer is not being supported by, won't be supported by Make Solutions going forward. Because it's not really being supported by Microsoft really anymore. They're moving away from Explorer and into Microsoft Edge. So I know that in our session this morning, there were issues when people tried to sign into Internet Explorer. So try using a different browser and see, because that could definitely be your problem.
I did. I did. We'll try it one more time, see if it works.
Sure.
Nope. It's not working in Chrome either.
Patty, are you on? It looks like you're on.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be a problem.
No, of course, absolutely. Or Pam,
Yes, I'm here.
I know you're a site admin with your site, so if you wouldn't mind trying to update his password,
Okay.
because I did and I put it back to Transit 5, so I'm not sure.
In the demo or our actual transit?
I'm in Axel.
In demo, you shouldn't be in actual Transit. You should be in demo.
Did you sign in with the HTTP demo link that they gave us, Kevin?
I thought I did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me go in here to your
Because
name.
that's only gonna work for demo. Like in our production domain, it's still our previous version of Transit. Everything we're doing now isn't live yet. You just have access to.
Can you send me the link, Pam?
Yes, I will.
Which explains the reason I can't get in here.
Why? It's the link, you think?
No.
Wrong.
I think it's because I'm using the.
So I have it up on the screen. I'm displaying here. Let me paste it too.
Let's see. I wrote it down. I didn't want to lose it.
And I pasted it into the chat there. I know that
Okay.
there were some people who opened it from the chat in our morning session and it automatically opened into Internet Explorer. So if it does that for you, you just need to make sure that you copy the link to a different browser.
Yeah, I try not to ever use IE whenever I'm in transit.
Yeah. And before it was fine, but with our newer release, I think even our last release, we stopped supporting Internet Explorer.
Welcome.
Let me try this real quick. I'm just gonna reboot real quick.
Okay. I'm actually sending, I'm just slow, Kevin.
I put it in the chat as well.
I think it's my browser screwed up. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. I'm in here.
Oh, you're so
I'm in here, Pam.
Okay. Sorry,
Thanks.
you got it anyway.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so again, I'm not really following not that you put it in the chat, you called out, but it's hard for me to follow the chat while I'm presenting and stuff. So if you need anything from me, question, or you need me to stop, just call out.
Angela, before you get started, who
Yes.
puts the oh shoot, now I forgot what they asked me. I'll find it in a second. Is it the vendor or the applications? Who puts the applications in there? Is it you guys, or do we have access to do that? If like instead of web server or whatever web reports that we have a new reporting system. Who would put that in?
So that depends. So you must, Pam, you're joining the admin training on a different day, I assume?
Yes, I think it's Friday.
Okay, so on Friday, you will learn how to maintain all of that content for your
Good.
site.
Sounds awesome.
If you go to turn on something and it doesn't exist, then you need to email us at support. So if it doesn't exist, then it means that someone at Transit needs to create it inside Transit, and then you'll be able to turn it on. But if it is something that already exists inside Transit, then any of the site administrators will have access to turn it on for your site.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You'll see on Friday that it's actually much easier now as well.
Good. I'm telling you, I'm loving this.
Yeah, honestly, the simplicity of the consistency as well, from just right clicking. If you can't find what you're looking for, you right click either the header or the field that you're at, and you should get the menu or the item, whatever it is that you're looking for. So as soon as you get accustomed to right clicking everything, you should be good to go across Transit 5.0.
Awesome.
Yes, so we will continue on now with scenarios. So I'll first start with creating a scenario if you're using content that's either content that your site's built inside Transit or content that we already have inside Transit. And then after that, I'll show you the new way to get a spreadsheet into Transit, because it's no longer an upload, it's a faster copy and paste. So to create your new scenario, it's the same kind of icon that we're seeing everywhere else. So you'll click your create a new scenario icon. You will give your scenario a name. The number is going to default in the next number up in your series, but as per usual, you can free type whatever number you'd like into this field. You can select the category. So now you see there's only two options in the category drop-down list. So we only have process and functional. We previously had training scenarios as an option as well, but nobody used it, so we got rid of it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a process-based scenario. You can select which project you want for your scenario, as you could before. I'm going to stick with current state, and I will just give it a description. And then save. So when we do that, it's going to bring us to the scenario steps page as it did previously. You'll click the same icon to start adding tasks and workflows to your scenario. So from, as you saw from our import window, we also have the options to look for workflows only or to include global. So a nice new feature is, let's say you are, you need to get a scenario put together quickly, and you look and you don't see that the workflow exists in your organization, but you see that we have one created in global. You can select a global workflow from this add a task window and add it to your scenario right away. So that kind of bypasses the need to import and get it into your scenario right away. The one hesitancy with doing that is, as you all know, Cerner is very configurable. And so just because our task or workflow is written in a certain way, it may not exactly represent your Cerner build. So we always encourage to import at the workflow level and then make sure that the workflow matches your Cerner build before using it in a scenario. But there's obviously ways to figure out where workflows are used inside a scenario. If you realize after you add the workflow to your scenario and realize, oh, I actually should have made some changes to that workflow before adding it to my scenario. But you can bypass the import from the workflow or task page by searching for it here, because as soon as you search for a workflow here and you add it to your scenario, that automatically adds the workflow into your organization. Same if it was an individual task. Let's start building out a quick scenario here. So I'm going to not focus on, actually, I guess I'll leave that checked for now. But let's look at, I'll just look for pre-reg, let's say. So I looked for only options that are workflows, and I also selected to include global. When you do that, you do need to make sure that you're really paying attention to the icons that are displayed beside the workflows here, because you want to make sure that you're selecting the workflows that you know are your organization's workflows as opposed to global workflows if it's something that already exists inside your organization. So if it's something that doesn't exist yet, you'll see the globe and you'll be able to add it. But in this case, workflow number 927 already exists inside your organization. So there's no reason to select the global option. You want to make sure that you're selecting only the ones that are already confirmed for your organization. And so if you're concerned about not knowing which is which, it's the icons here, but if you don't want to see the global options, obviously you just get rid of that check and only look at the workflows that have already been confirmed for your organization. You'd really only want to be selecting a global option if the workflow doesn't already exist for your organization. So I'm going to, let's just do this one here. We'll enter a pre-reg for an existing patient. So I've selected my my workflow here. What's really cool now is I do have the option. So let's say I wanted, this is an incomplete pre-reg. So my first step is creating the incomplete pre-reg, and then I want to go and update right after. I can select my first workflow, and then right away I can select my second workflow. You can see they're both selected, and then I can click next. And first, it's going to bring me to this Add Tasks page. And it's going to show me everything that I just selected, so you can review. But it's allowing me to add both of those workflows at the same time. And based on the order that you select things in, that's the order that's going to insert things into your scenario. So it's a bit of a time saver there. And also you can see I didn't select the facility at all. The facility is now going to be populated based on the workflows that the tasks and workflows that you select. So that's not something that you need to select somewhere else. So now it's going to, the day number is going to default to 0, but that's still a field I can type into if I'd like. And I can select my position here. So as I mentioned, the positions are now, every position is listed in my drop-down list here. And I'm just gonna say reg and select the reg clerk. And I can click save. And so now it has added both of those workflows for me. So you can see here's my pre-reg, and then here's where my visit, and then this is where my modify workflow picks up. So my first was creating my pre-reg, and then I went in and I modified my pre-reg because I'm ready to complete all the rest of the information in my scenario. So before, if you were adding a workflow, each of them had to be done individually, whereas now it can be done inside the same workflow, or sorry, the same adding window. You see that there's no longer the links or the arrows down the side. Oh, so again, I mentioned from the workflow page that there's no longer the workflow tasks page. There's only the workflow steps page, and scenarios is the same. There's no longer a scenario tasks page. There's only the scenario steps page, which really, when you're looking at this scenario, you pretty much just care what the steps are. You don't need to know what the outside of the task looks like. That information is still displayed, so it's off to the side here. You can see the task number and then the workflow number. The information is still there for you, but right away you're just taken to the scenario steps page. But so when you want to, if you're needing to do either a multi-step change or even just a single step change, it's all done from your right click menu. So there's no longer those black arrows to select all of your steps. There's no longer the link to click the copy, move, delete multiple, or whatever the link is called. You would just select and then hold shift and then select your last and then do right click. So let's say I want to insert a workflow above this first step here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert task above, which is then going to open that same add task window. So I'm just going to add a workflow here. So again, I really like this feature. I really like that before you start adding stuff to your scenario. It tells you exactly what you're adding. You can select your position and click save. And now that's been inserted above. Let's say I want to move everything from my my visits, my creating the pre-reg. I want to move that above that appointment workflow. I can shift click to select everything and right click, and I can say cut. You can see that these icons have been displayed on the side to show everything that I'm cutting. And then I can right click above or on the spot that I want to insert above, and I can select to insert tasks above. Sorry, I should have pasted above. There, so now those tasks were cut from the place that they previously were and pasted where I asked them to be pasted. So even like the lingo is kind of much more standard Microsoft type of lingo. So with your cut and paste as opposed to move. And then with your shift click, it makes it much more, I think, user friendly. You have additional multi-step options. So I'll just select all of those again. And let's say I want to change the position that I selected for all of these tasks. I can right click and select to change the position. It gives me all of the positions that are available. I can select anything, not appropriate, but I'll just select this just to show a change. I can also, if I want to change the day number, I can do that. And I can change the facility as well. So at the workflow level, we looked at adding the interfaces, and so that can also be added at the scenario level. So you would right click the step that you want to add the interface to, and you'll select add interface. It gives you the same window that we saw when we did it from the workflow page. You can select, you could also, if you want to narrow down your list here, you could type in here. It's now only showing me stuff that has ADT. You can select whichever interfaces are appropriate for what you're doing and click save. And those have been added for me. Again, with that field, if I needed to add any details into the details field. So in previous TransIT, if you added a task to your workflow and you realized, oh shoot, that should have had an interface on it, you'd have to go into the task, edit the task, add all the appropriate interface transactions, and then go back to your scenario. Whereas now you can just do it from right clicking and adding it right away to your scenario. So I think that's a very convenient feature that's been added. As you start to add to your scenario and it starts to exceed what can be contained on one page, you'll just right click the header and you'll be able to do the page size all. So I mentioned before that's going to be something that's available on kind of all of the different pages across TransIT. So when you're wanting to see everything all on one page, you just do the page size all. The different column options that you see here, they can also be configurable. So let's say you don't find it particularly helpful to see the tasks and the workflows on your scenario steps page. You can come to this, so you would right click the header. You can come down to where it says columns, and I can deselect workflows and I can deselect tasks. And now there's no longer that those two displayed on my screen. But if I want to add them back, it's just a simple select here. So you're really able to customize the view that you're getting. You could also, I've clicked on the header option here. I can move it as well so that I have workflows ahead of tasks. So you're able to customize the view so that it is the view that kind of suits what you need. Where that, where you want to watch with that is when it comes to doing a paste from an Excel spreadsheet into TransIT. So instead of uploading, it's now just a copy and paste from Excel. You don't want to have your column headers mixed up. You want to make sure you've got everything that you need to properly paste from a spreadsheet into TransIT. So, you know, things like the task number and the workflow number, those won't be things that are a problem when it comes to pasting from a spreadsheet. I would probably recommend just keeping this view, but if there's a certain reason why you really want to manipulate your view to be whatever you find is more suitable for you, then you certainly have that flexibility to make those changes. So the header is a little bit quite different now. So there's no longer that icon to access your header. You would, you go back out to the scenarios page. This scenario. And you will right click your scenario name and then click to edit the header. So I've got nothing added to my header at this time. So it's of course blank. So when I'm ready to start adding to my header, you will click the icon here. And so previously we had all of the fields displayed along the side, and you would scroll through the whole list to find the fields that you're looking for and type whatever you need into those fields. So instead, what it is now is those have all been populated into this drop-down list here. So let's say I'm wanting to put a field for patient name. I can just type P and it sorts my list to show me all the options there. So I'm going to select patient name. Then it gives me what you want to be in that field. And so I'll put tester, patient. And say, and that's been added. So there's already an enhancement request that I put in. It's just, it's not, it didn't take top priority, so it's not there yet. But to be able to add multiple fields without the window closing. So at this point in time, that's not an option, but it will be coming. But so after you've added your field, you then need to click the pencil icon again, and then you can type into there. Enter the information. Let's say you wanted to add multiple patient names, for example. I want to add another of the exact same field type that's already there. I can right click there and I can select to add another. It knows that I already have a patient type added. So it tells me here, this is patient type 2, or sorry, patient name 2. And I can put right like, and then it's going to add that to my list here. And so of course, if I wanted to edit something, I would just right click to edit the details. And if I wanted to inactivate something, I can just right click in and activate, which then gets it away from here. I can click the back arrow to go back to my list of scenarios. Okay, that clicked import. So all of that information has now been retained inside my scenario. So I never selected the facility for my my scenario, but because the very first workflow that I added was an all scripts workflow, it automatically pulled in that as the facility. Okay. Are there questions about creating a, I guess, from scratch scenario before I move into what it looks like to upload or copy and paste now?
I have a few.
All right, let's start at the beginning.
Okay, and some of them I probably should already know, and I apologize, but you keep saying confirmed, like task numbers and stuff. Are those the ones that originally went into the system, like we were Cerner, so those went into the system? And does it include the ones we built? Will those display when we're looking for the numbers?
Yeah, so anything that you have currently in your organization, it's going to be there for you. So let's.
Okay.
So you're talking about like adding a task or a workflow to a scenario, right?
Right. And you said when you were looking for it, they would pull in the confirmed. So I just wanted to make sure what that word confirmed meant. Is it everything that we built plus what you all entered in when we started with TransIT?
Right. So by confirmed, I mean if it's a workflow that it doesn't have the globe, so there's no globe inside this. That means it's one of your workflows. So all I meant by confirmed is that if it's a workflow that already exists in your organization, it should be one that you already know what the content is inside that workflow.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and so also what you can do is if you hover over the description column, a little flashy, but it will give you a look at what that looks like. So what the tasks are inside that workflow. And also when you go to add, you have that other opportunity to scroll through here and to review. And so if you're not 100% sure that that's the right workflow and you select it and you click next and you get to here, you have that opportunity to look and say, okay, is this actually the workflow that I'm needing to add? And if not, you can obviously cancel out. But if it is, you know you're all good and you can just click save.
Okay. Next one.
Yes.
Interfaces.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I've never entered interfaces into my scripts, but they just automatically show there. So are you talking about things that are additional to what already displayed that you would have to add interfaces, or are we going to start having to add interfaces?
So I'm not sure about exists. Patty, are you on? She keeps kind of coming and going. Because yes, previously there were tasks that interface transactions had already been added to, but they're no longer being added at the task level now, but I don't actually know what that means about existing content. So I'm going to message her so that I can have an answer for you. I know it no longer needs to be added at a task level. It's added inside a workflow or scenario. I'm not 100% sure for stuff that it was already existing in. So I need her to answer that. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. And when you change the field display, where is it I'm going to see that other than where you changed it? Is it going to display in the header?
So it will, so you mean like if I was to no longer show the tasks and workflows column?
Well, like you put patient name and you changed your patient name and you inactivated it. So is there some place, is it within the script that we're going to see that patient name, that field? Is that what
So
you're talking about?
This field here. So
Yes.
just like in the currently active TransIT, the scenario window is still your kind of build
Right.
component. So you won't see the actual patient's name until you go to run the scenario on the test dashboard. So from here, it's just going to be your field names. But then when it's added to a test dashboard, that's where the patient name no longer is displayed in the brackets. It then becomes whatever your patient's name is.
So I'm sorry, but can you show me again where you changed that and it was just field and there was only a couple of headers in it when you changed it?
Sure. So it should, I have something logged to have it display on this this screen here, but it's not at the moment. It's only available from the scenarios page at this moment, not the scenario steps. So to access your header from here, you would go to your scenario, right click and do edit header.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know where you're at now. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's different because before it was, there's a icon that you would click that takes you to the header. Whereas now I think,
yeah,
and it looks completely different now.
it does. It just didn't click until you just now said that. I appreciate you showing me that again.
You're
okay, so
welcome.
there's no way to get to the header from your scenario. You have to go back like you just did.
Went to the scenario, right clicked and edit header.
Okay.
Right. So there's already something logged to make sure that it's available from the scenario steps page. It's just in the interest of time, it didn't take top priority in comparison to other things.
Right.
So it will be coming. It's just not there now. At this point in time, you need to go back to the scenarios page and access it by right clicking your scenario name. So let's look at one that has a little bit more to it. So if I view the header for this treat and release scenario, you can see there's much more that's been added to it. And so although the layout of it is much different, it looks it's got much more meat like you're probably used to seeing with all of your current scenario headers.
Right.
Thank you.
And so again, when we go and look at stuff, when we get into the testing component, it'll all start to look like that's where you'll be able to see, okay, well, at the scenario steps page, it said patient name inside brackets, but now that I'm looking at it from the testing perspective, it says Angela patient, whatever the name is of your test patient.
I have one quick question, Angela.
Yes.
Well, it might be quick. My question's still here. I don't know about your response. So if we want to import from an Excel document, say we have a test script built out in Excel that we want to utilize in TransIT, we have to first make all the top headers in the Excel document match the headers in TransIT, correct?
Yes.
And then you just go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's how it's always been with the upload. The one I think what maybe people would say is annoying thing about when you were uploading before is it had to be like a certain file type and stuff like that. And so you of course need your header, your column headers to match, because the system needs to know where you want all of that which fields you want that content to be placed in. But now it's just a cut and paste as opposed to an upload. So I was going to show that next, but if there's no other questions, I can jump right into that before we. But does anyone have any questions about building a scenario like this before we move on? No. So we will move on then. So I have a spreadsheet that is mostly ready to go. So I'm going to go back to my scenarios page, and I'm going to create a new scenario so that I can copy and paste from. So because you're not doing an upload, you need to start by creating the scenario name. So my scenario is, okay, and I'm going to do a process scenario. And it's taken me inside, which is great. Now I'm going to go to my Excel spreadsheet. So this is my spreadsheet here. So because I've already worked on this, I know that this matches my the header options that I need. So this task and workflow, these task and workflow columns, they don't matter, because the tasks and workflows, the numbers that are displayed in this column are based on content that already exists inside TransIT. But at this point, we're not working with existing content. We're working with content that exists inside Excel that I just want to get inside TransIT. But you need to make sure that your first column is step, then position, login. You don't need to fill in the login column, which you never have had to do, because it's automatically going to pull in whatever you have built into your position logins at the org setting level. So that column, you don't fill anything in. You put your application, the day, the action outcome, and then the facility. So you can then do a highlight. I won't do too much, but you select whatever it is you want to select from your spreadsheet and do a copy. And then I can go back to my TransIT, and I'm going to right click the header, and here I'm going to select paste from clipboard. When I do that, it opens this window for me. So this is looking at all of the information that I had copied from Excel. It's giving it all to me in this window here. From this window, what I want to look out for. So you can see that before current TransIT, there were certain characters that it didn't like. So even though this looks like this here, it means that it probably has like quotation marks or something. Even though it looks like that here, it is, and this looks like a lot of junk as well, is even though it looks like that here, it is going to pull in appropriately when we click save. But what it will show you, you want to watch out for any of that stuff is red. So all that I had that was red here was just the name of the, I guess this is a function. So it's telling me that whatever I have in this column here does not match what is currently set up inside TransIT. What it's not going to do is it's not going to stop you from uploading it. It's going to allow me to upload this even though I have errors. So before, it just physically would not allow you to update it. So now you just need to make sure that you're scrolling through and seeing if there are any major errors that you want to make sure that you fix before you're doing your upload. But let's say I'm pretty happy with how all of this is looking. I click save, and that's all it takes to get my spreadsheet from Excel into TransIT. So there's no longer, that's the process that has replaced what it previously looked like to upload an existing spreadsheet. What it will do, so anywhere that it gave me a red and didn't like whatever I had in the particular column, it's going to just back up to the next step that it had that it did like. So so power plans falls under power chart. So because it didn't like however I had power plans written, it's just going to back up to only be at power chart. You do have the option, of course, to go in and edit your task. And so I'd be able to edit and add my application here if I wanted to. Or you may be happy enough with it just being called power chart, whatever you're comfortable with. So I think that I had shown it before. I know I certainly showed it with workflows. But so if I wanted to edit this step for whatever I'm wanting to edit it, it's just the right click and edit task, which opens in another tab, allows me to make edits to whatever needs to change, whether it's the product, application, or the steps themselves. I can make whatever changes I need, and I can toggle back and forth between here's my scenario and here's my task opened in a second window. I can make whatever changes I want, and then I can close this window. So I have to keep dragging this window because my presenting bar is blocking me from exiting out of this window. Actually, I should just close this. So it's now made it, I think for me, I find that makes it a lot easier if I am needing to make edits to my task, because I can still have the scenario open and I can just go back and forth between my two tabs to see, okay, well, what am I changing? It also, as it did with how we previously uploaded, it still assigns those ZZZ tasks with numbers. So all of these, all of this uploaded content still gets individual task name and numbers automatically populated for it, just like it did with our currently active version of TransIT. Does that make sense to everybody for the for how you're now doing uploads with it not being called uploads anymore? So you can also work in the reverse. So if I was wanting to take what is here and select, let's say all of it, and do a copy to clipboard. So I came down to clipboard from my right click menu, copy to clipboard, and I went back to Excel. I'll just add another sheet for now. I can paste. So it's easy to copy and paste back and forth between TransIT and Excel. So let's say you do have a few spreadsheets that you need to get going to upload into TransIT, but you're not entirely comfortable with what the new, I didn't include that, but you're not entirely comfortable with the new kind of formatting. You could start by working in the reverse. So you could start by exporting or copying and pasting from a scenario that's there now doing the copy to clipboard, pasting it into an Excel document, make the changes that you need to make, and then select the fields from your Excel document and then do a paste from clipboard. So you're going to see a lot of copy to clipboard and copy paste from clipboard all across TransIT. Does anyone have any questions about all of that?
So when you are pasting or going from Excel to TransIT, let's say like you have another script that's similar to your one that's in TransIT, and you update that one, and then you go to copy it into TransIT, is it always going to add it as a ZZZ task if it's new content or new update to TransIT? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Let me.
Or can you, without creating a new one, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If I wanted to update an existing scenario steps via Excel copying and pasting, that's a weird way to do it maybe, but if I wanted to do it that way, is that possible or no, being that the copy and paste option is now available?
I believe it's always going to assign new task numbers, but I will do that right now. So rather than having that be a question, I will just figure it out.
Okay. Sorry,
so,
on the fly, I like it.
Yes. So I'm going to go into, just select this one. Oh, come on. Go back. I'm very biased. I like to stick with Cerner because I'm more comfortable with the Cerner content. Okay, so I'll just stick with treat. Okay, so this has all actual TransIT tasks. So I think that because you're copying outside of TransIT and then pasting back into TransIT, that the answer is that it's always going to assign new task numbers, but let's just, I'm pretty sure it did last time. Okay, so I've selected those. I'm going to copy to clipboard. Okay. And now. I'm going to paste it into my junkie scenario here. And go paste from clipboard. So it's not recognizing the numbers at this point in time. Ah, you're there. So yes, it does assign numbers.
Good to know, just curious.
Yeah, no, for sure. I thought that was the case last time I did it, but I hadn't tried in about a week or so I didn't know if anything had changed since. But essentially, if you're not wanting it to, create new, you'd obviously just update it inside TransIT versus pasting it outside of TransIT to make your changes.
Gotcha. I have one other question.
Mm-hmm.
In the current state TransIT, we have to, like, once we build a task and or workflow, we have to like confirm that those
QA.
steps are correct. Do you still have to do that? I might have missed that.
No, there is no longer QA.
Awesome. I kind of like that.
You know, I have trained probably the majority of our clients, and I would bet that almost, I'm not going to say every because I don't want to make assumptions, but I would say almost none of our clients actually QA anything. So we figured that rather than making people do additional clicks, because there's QAing at the task level and then QAing at the workflow level, we figured we would go away with it because people weren't really using it anyways, and now it's just fewer clicks for you. And I'm going to assume that everybody's probably happy with that decision.
I would agree.
Yes. Okay, so I think we're good to move on to testing, but if there's anything that people would like me to go back to, then we can, or if you'd like to take a few minutes to play around with scenarios before we move on to testing, we can do that as well. What's kind of people's idea?
I had a question.
Yes.
How is it possible to export an entire scenario? I'm having trouble trying to do that in testing.
Yep. So you would just right click the header and then export to Excel. Just thinking about it. So
I'm getting a page. This page isn't working.
And you did the same thing I just did?
Yes. Let's try it again.
Okay, and what browser are you in? Just like
Chrome. Let me switch to this scenario.
I'm also getting that.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Yeah. I haven't encountered that yet, so I'm just passing that on.
Yeah, it seems to happen in whatever scenario.
Yeah. So again, we're still working on a few things, but it's good to know that others aren't being able to do that. So I can report that to our developer because I haven't run into that at all myself. So it's good to know that others are, because when I export, it still should look for your reference when it's working for you. It will still export in the same fashion that it normally looks when you export an Excel in TransIT. So it's going to give you the two tabs. The one tab that's going to have your header details, and then the second tab that's going to be your steps. But I will definitely log that. I've passed the message on, but I'll officially log it when we're done. So
is it no one can export, Ange?
I've had, has anybody been able to do that successfully? Because I know there were a couple that could not.
This is Pam, I can.
You can?
Yes. I
Okay,
get the
thanks.
two tabs just like before.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
Maybe it's specific to Covenant Health because Martin and I are both with Covenant Health.
Oh, could
And
it be?
are you guys using Chrome or what are you using?
Yeah, we're both using Chrome.
So could it be something in the like
Is it not doing the spreadsheet down at the bottom for you?
It just says this page, it won't load.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
So I wonder if you guys can check and see if Travis can do it. Because I wonder if it's like a security setting on your side or something, if there's something blocking. Because it is kind of like it's an internet or it's a browser setting to be able to create an export file. And so if the other sites it's working and yours isn't, it might be some sort of a security setting on your browsers.
It says, specifically, it says this page isn't working. Gives the URL demo.makesolutionsinc.com, sent an invalid response. And then it gives ERR
Can you,
response header.
can you
Patty,
send, can you send us
it's
a
in their
screenshot?
browser. It's in their browser. It's a setting in their browser. They have to uncheck.
So who was that? And it was that Kevin? And do you know what the setting is?
No, they'll have to get their network administrators
Okay.
to show them which one that is.
Yeah. And if either Martin or Beth, if you can either send the screenshot, maybe I can send it to our developer and he'll know what the browser setting is. I just know that like to do pop-up windows and to do creating an Excel file from a browser, there are security settings you need. And we, our guide for that is completely out of date and is only relevant for Internet Explorer. But if either of you can grab me a screenshot, I'll see if we can get you a quick answer. Otherwise, do you guys know who to ask on your end?
Yeah, I would guess it would be the network server team, right, Martin?
And so,
I would think.
so when you guys get that information, if you can send back to me what you guys had to change, because then we'll put that on our website too for other clients so that they know what setting has to be changed. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll grab the screenshot and send it to you here in just a minute.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks,
Thank
Patty.
you. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then we'll move on to testing. Okay, so I have a test round that I've got set up here for just training today. But so for starters, you can see that when you click testing before, it displayed the test execution page. So the test execution page is now called the test rounds page. So it's just been renamed. And it's got a slightly different view to it now. So before in the testing column here, the links were named slightly differently. So it used to just say continue testing or start testing. Now it says continue day one, start day one. So it specifically calls out the day number for you. If you are needing to put a scenario on hold for whatever reason, it used to be a hyperlink. It is now just a checkbox. You just simply check or uncheck that box. And you see that there is so we still have these 4 icons that are the same icons that are currently live in TransIT, but we no longer have the position dashboard icon. The reason for that is that the position dashboard has actually been consolidated into the existing dashboard, and it's now just a filter option as opposed to a whole separate dashboard altogether. But before I click away from here, you are able to access the test header from the test rounds page, where you could not access it from the currently live, what we call 4.x version of TransIT. So if I was wanting to view the test header for any of these scenarios, I can right click beside the scenario name here, and I can view the test header. And so it's giving me all the information for my header. And it would be the same functionality to add. So if I was needing to add or change something, I can add by using this pencil icon here, or I can also edit by right clicking and selecting to edit the details or add another if that's something that you need to do. If I need to go back to my test execution page, I can just click back, which brings me right back to my test rounds page. But from here, I think we're ready to go inside the test dashboard. So the test dashboard is the same icon that it was previously. We still have the icons that display on the side here. And so those icons are going to be responsive based on the time that you have on your desktop, so, or your PC, whatever you're using. So if you're wanting to have the icons display as they're supposed to, so for example, this exclamation mark icon displays if we get halfway through the day, so if it's 12 o'clock and you haven't completed at least 50% of the steps. So if you're wanting to make sure that those icons display for you appropriately, then you'll need to, you just need to know that they're going to be reflected on what time it is on your desktop. So as I mentioned, there is no longer a position dashboard. It is still the same icon that I believe it's the same icon that it is in the 4.x version of TransIT. So this is going to be by default whatever you've built into your the user settings that I showed at the very beginning of the class. I can click on this icon here. And when I do that, it automatically filters the test dashboard based on whatever positions I had set in my my user settings. So when I click that, you could see that it then refreshed the screen to only show scenarios. So I had previously turned on, if you remember from the beginning, I had turned on just the EDRN and EDRN2. So when I clicked that position icon, it refreshed, and now it's only showing me the scenarios where the EDRN has steps in. So it has also given me this weight column. So this is telling me that I have steps in ED treat and release, violent patient, shortness of breath, and ED depression. In treat and release and depression, I have 9 steps that I'm waiting on to be completed before my steps are up for treat and release, and 75 for depression. But for the violent patient and shortness of breath, I'm actually up next because there's nothing showing in this weight column. So the action column and the scenario column are both ways to get inside your scenario steps, your test steps, just like they always have been inside the testing dashboard. The difference when you are using the position filter is where it takes you. So if I am wanting to, let's say I know I'm able to move ahead with these steps, even though it still says that I'm waiting for 9 steps to be completed ahead of me. But I know based on what my workflow is that I'm able to complete these steps. If I want to be taken into the test steps to exactly where my steps are, I want to select the action from the action column. So if I click there, it takes me into my test steps, and I see that my steps are right here at the top, and I can work away on completing my steps.
Are you saying work ahead in the script?
So I'm only saying that it's possible. So there's certain situations where from a workflow perspective, so regardless of what the steps are in your scenario, from an actual real life workflow perspective, you're able to move ahead.
All CMC people, no.
Pardon?
Anybody from CMC on this is listening to this, I just don't want them to think they can do that. We don't go ahead in steps. Thanks,
Okay.
Angela.
No problem. So yes, it would be based on whatever your organization decides is the way you want to go about things. So that the functionality is there if you'd like to use it, but you don't even need to pass that information on to your people if you don't want them to know. So if you don't want your people to be able to go ahead and do that, instead of using the action list or link, sorry, you can instead click the scenario name link just like you could before. By doing that, instead of taking me directly to where my steps are, it's going to take me inside to exactly what it'll show me what those 9 steps are before me. So it'll be the 9 steps before, and if I keep scrolling, then you can see here are my steps below that I'm waiting on to complete. And I just clicked the back button to bring me back to my test dashboard. And when I do that, it's still retained my my position dashboard settings. So it's the 2 options. It's the action column if you want to access exactly, if you want to be taken into exactly where your steps are, or it's the scenario name link if you want to be taken to exactly what steps are currently up next inside your scenario. If you want to remove that filter, it's all stored inside this position column. So when you right click here, you can remove the position filter. And then it's going to give you back everything from the dashboard again. Let's say you wanted to filter to see different positions in this position column. You can right click the position header and select positions to cover, which then gives you this position dashboard window. So let's say I had nothing set up under my user settings, so where I had showed at the very beginning. If I didn't have anything set up here, and I clicked the position dashboard icon here, it would automatically open this window for me. So if you don't have any position set up for yourself yet, it would open this window for you. So I'm going to say, let's look for the EDMD. So I typed in, I press enter, and I'm going to select these both, and I'm going to save. So now it's done the same thing. It's filtered to show me only the scenarios that the EDMD is participating in, and then it gives me the number of steps that are before the EDMD's positions, or sorry, steps. So again, if I want to remove that filter, it's just a right click and remove the position filter. Okay. When I am ready to go and start executing, so sorry, before I go, all of these fields, all of these column fields should still look the exact same. It still tells you the number of steps that are remaining, the number passed, flagged, issues, skipped, etc., and the percentage. When I'm ready to go and start executing on my steps, it's still I can click the scenario name link. And so before we had all of the icons displayed along the left-hand side, plus we had the down arrow that flipped to up arrow for when you were doing multiple. So now from the test steps page here, you only see the pass icon. So you can just keep passing individually if you'd like. But if you're wanting to do to pass or like multiple steps in a row, you would do same as kind of I've showed everywhere else. You do select the first step that you want to execute on, hold down shift, and then select the last one that you want to execute on, and then you right click. And that's where you get the list of options for you. So you can pass, skip, flag, issue, test notes. So if I want to pass all of these steps, then I can just select pass. And now it's removed those for me. So before, when you had passed a number of steps in a row, it wouldn't automatically have those steps drop off your view. You would have to wait until the screen refreshed, or if you clicked away to, let's say, log a note or an issue, and then you came back to the page, as soon as you came back to the page, it would have those steps fall off and you just have the next steps up that are brought to the top. But now, right away, when steps are passed, they're going to fall off your view. If you actually need to be able to view all of those steps, everything is just going to be under this status column here. So let's say I want to view, so by default, it's going to just show the remaining steps, but let's say I need to show more than just the remaining steps. I can click my filter and select the different options from this drop-down list. So I'll just select all of the options for now. And then when you do that, you can see that all of those steps that have been previously passed are now displaying here once again. If I was needing to reset steps, same thing. So do the select, shift, click, and select, and then right click and reset the steps. And if you're ready to go back to just the remaining steps, you can, of course, adjust your filters again just to view only the remaining steps. The most common place where you're going to need to see more than just the remaining steps is, of course, when you skip steps. So let's say these first chunk of steps, I decide I can't complete, so I'm going to skip them. But then whatever the issue was that was preventing me to complete the steps has been rectified, and so now I'm able to actually go and execute on those steps. I would just I could either add it to this or I could get rid of remaining as well, but I'm going to just add skipped to my display as well. And so now all of the skip steps are displaying for me. I can go ahead and select them all, right click, and reset the steps. And then you'd be able to start going ahead and executing on them. So the way we recommend doing testing is rather than flagging a whole chunk of steps in a row, you would pass the one. So let's say these steps here are all good, and we can right click and pass these steps. But this step is not correct. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to do a test note. I'm going to select my note type as, let's say, script. It's going to default to new here. I'm going to assign it to this person. It's going to automatically default to say that it was reported by me. But you can, of course, select other options from this drop-down list. So one thing that was actually added to TransIT is the ability to add contacts that aren't actually TransIT users, but they're people who participate in a round of testing, but they're not going to have access to TransIT. Your administrators have the ability to add a list of contacts here that can then be selected from this reported by drop-down list. So let's say that it's your enterprise resource planning team who's reporting this particular note. You can select them from the drop-down list rather than selecting a person as the person reporting the change that needs to happen. So then you can say, I don't know, script needs to be updated. You then have 2 additional tabs that have been added here for you. So the steps tab is going to show you exactly what the step looked like that you were making a note on. And then the attachments is, of course, where you can attach a screenshot or whatever file you wanted to attach to the note. And so you would just click in here, which allows you to browse your PC to find whatever screenshot you want to add. And so once you've updated everything that you wanted to update, you can then click save. And so now that note has been added. So the step itself is fine. There's no bug or no issue with the step itself. It just needs to have the script updated. So to us, that's still a pass. It's just a note needs to be made for the script to be updated after the round of testing. So I passed that step individually. But let's say this is saying confirm data on tab, click next tab. Let's say this tab doesn't exist. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to flag this. I'm going to say, I think that this is an issue. I'm going to assign it to this person and say, this tab does not exist. Not sure if it is an issue or the script. So again, same thing. We've got our steps tab, and then we can attach an attachment there and click save. So I'm going to go back to my test dashboard now. And now you can see, because I've been executing on this first scenario, we've got some stuff showing here in our columns, just as it did previously in TransIT. By default, it is set to only show the steps that are applicable for today. But if I wanted to see steps that are for other days of testing, I can click this view all dates icon, which will blow out all the rest of the days of testing for me. So you can see the data for all the rest of the days of testing. And I can click back to get rid of that, that additional information. The issue list is going to look a little bit, or sorry, the test report is going to look a little bit different. We can click the test report icon, and it shows me here the 2 ones that I had logged notes for. If I was wanting to change one of them into an issue, so let's say, which one? Let's say it turns out this is an issue because that tab should be displayed, and I'm going to turn it into an issue. So I've right clicked and now I'm going to select issue. It opens this issue window for me. I'm going to say it's maybe hi, issue with build, assign it to whoever, and say tab should from build. And now you can see when I did that, it then moved it over to the issue column here, which then can be viewed in the same issue using the same issue list icon that we had previously. All right, go back. Another thing about the dashboard is it's set to automatically refresh. So before you had to click the link to have it auto refresh. Now it just does that automatically. You no longer have to set that option for yourself. Also from the test dashboard page, if you right click in the scenario, any of the fields, you can select to edit the scenario header from the test dashboard as well. So I showed it from the test rounds page, but it's also available from the test dashboard page. And we still have the pie chart icons for the summary chart. So if you click this icon, we don't really have much flagged for this round of testing, but it still gives you the same information that you had before, and you still have that ability to click the appropriate sliver to view the information for that particular round of testing. Is this only supposed to go to 4 o'clock? Or is it 4:30?
I have 4:30 in my calendar.
Yeah, I thought it was
Okay, sorry, I
4:30.
just wasn't sure if I only have 7 minutes left. Sorry. Okay, so for testing, so I'm going to move into issues next, but for a round of testing specifically, is there anything that you want me to review? Any questions about any of it?
I'm sorry, I probably missed it again, but how do you add a script to the dashboard?
So that would be from the test rounds page. And I feel like that's something that only administrators should be doing.
I mean, now
That's
currently
gonna be a-
users can do that and they can just add the script to the dashboard.
Okay.
So, yeah, and they have that little add script.
Yeah.
Wh-
So then it's just a right click, add test.
Ah, there you go. I should have known it was a right click.
It's if you don't see it, it's a right click. That's the rule of thumb. So yeah, so right click, you can search for the scenario you want to add. Again, there's still the filter options to filter your list to be a smaller list, or if you know the name, you can type the name in here as well. And then you would just do this. Don't want to select.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that added the script to the test round. Was there anything else? Okay, I'm going to quickly move on to issues. So if you're looking at a specific round testing, there is that icon that's from your testing page. But if you're looking for your whole organization issues, you can select issues from the blue bar. And when you do that, it's going to give you the different rounds named along the side here. It's going to break down the number of opened, assigned, and processed, resolved, canceled, closed. And all of these are hyperlinked. So if I wanted to view all the open issues for my Cerner upgrade, I can click this here. And it takes me in, and it's just going to let me view all the open issues for this particular test round. When you're looking at an issue, it's a right click to edit your issue. And then you can make any of the edits that you need. But what you can also do, so when you edit, you can then select whatever the status is that you want to change. So let's say we're going to say it's resolved. And click save. So there's still, if you scroll down, you do have the option to add attachment. And click save. So now it's been removed off this list because I was only looking at open issues. I put it in resolve, but I can use this filter here and I could select resolve. And so this was the issue here that I had just made a change to. If I go and edit it again, you can see here, it's got a history of what's been happening. So because I added this seems to be resolved, it's added that to my history now. If you didn't want to open it from an edit capacity and you just wanted to view the history, you could also right click and see, like, view the changes. And it's just going to give me a list of what changes that have happened with this particular issue. If you know for sure, let's say I'm the one who's working on this and I know, okay, it's been resolved and I've tested and everything is good now and I'm ready to close out this issue, I can right click and I can say resolve issue. It is still going to open the issue window for me, but it automatically puts resolved into the status. I can give my update and then I can click save. So now it's, oh, sorry, it was already resolved. I should have closed it. So I can close the issue. Same thing. So it put closed into the status. And save. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to view all of my issues now. So at this point, I had initially opened just, or looked at only the open issues for a particular project. But let's say I want to view all of the issues. I can click this first icon here, which is going to give me all of the organization issues. I can then use my status here, so I don't want to see anything that's been closed, but let's say I only want to see the stuff that has been assigned to people and that has been resolved. I can select whatever I want, excuse me, from my status, and it's going to refresh my list to show just based on what I've asked it to show. If I want to view only open issues for the organization as a whole, so not for a specific random testing, but for the organization as a whole, I can click the second icon, which is all open issues. So now it's filtered to show only the open issue. So it does say resolved and in process, but from a build perspective, those are still quote unquote opened issue types. So even though their name is resolved, it's a resolved issue, but it's still in an open status. Does that make sense? The next icon is the icon for only open issues that are assigned to you. I don't know if any are assigned to me, but I click the icon here. And now it's only showing issues that are open and that have been assigned to me personally. If I want to view the issues that have been most recently viewed, I can click this icon. And it's showing me this issue that I've been working on here. If you want to select a particular filter, I'm going to just right click and page size all here. sorry, I'm going to view all issues as well. So let's say I'm responsible for this round, for a particular round of testing, and I want to set a filter that I'm going to want to come back to. I can say I want to view all assigned issues that have the priority of blocker and critical that have been assigned to me. And you don't have to select a vendor and application. And then I'm going to create that. No, there just weren't any for me. So what you can do here is, now that you've created this list, what you are able to do is you can bookmark this. So if you're responsible for the round of testing and you're really focused on the issue log and you want to be able to retain a list that you can come back to, you're able to bookmark this page, and then you'll be able to just use the bookmark to go back and get right back to this list, so that you don't have to set any of the filters again. It'll just give you that list as you asked it to. If you're wanting to, so I have a filtered list. I'm going to click back to you all. You can search. So if you're wanting to search for anything in the issue list, I'm going to, I see the word unable. I'm just going to type unable. And now it's going to show me all of the issues that had my search included in anywhere. So I've got enable in my description in both of these tasks. So whatever you want to search for, you can enter into that search field there. If you're wanting to create a new issue, it's this icon here. And then you can log the issue with all the information that you need to complete, and attach any attachment that you need to complete. Oops. Right. That's all the functionality surrounding issues. Were there any questions about that? No. Okay. So the last piece that we're going to touch on today is reports. So you can see that there's now fewer reports showing here. We had some reports that really never got used, so that we just removed them from the list since no one was using them here. The training material, don't bother using that link, because we have not updated to all 5.0 training material at this point in time. But the biggest change when it comes to reports is there's certain reports that take a really long time to generate, such as the test planning report. But when you go and select a report to generate, rather than having to sit there while it works on generating that report, it actually is going to run in the background. So let's say I want to run my test planning report. If I click test planning, and I'm going to run the report here. This is, so if you're going to want to run the report in Excel, then you'll click run report there. I'm going to select some process scenarios. I'm going to select these ones and click next. Okay, so we did log an issue this morning. It is accepting that I'm trying to run this report, but the window is just not closing. So I'm just going to cancel here. But if I go back to reports, there's now this icon that's added here. So as I said, when you generate a report, it's going to be running in the background. So it doesn't prevent you from moving on with other work inside TransIT. What you can do is you can run your report, go do whatever else it is you wanted to do in TransIT, and then come back to reports and click this icon here, which is to view generate reports. When I click that, you can see this is the report that I was trying to generate, the test planning report. If I click this link here, maybe I didn't give it enough time to generate. It was working earlier. That's complete. There we go. So I run my report. I allowed it to generate in the back. And now here my report is. So it looks the exact same as it looked in our current version of TransIT, with the two tabs, the one that's based on positions and then the other that's broken down by scenario. So the takeaway there is that reports that take quite a long time to generate because they've got a lot of content in them, they can run in the background. You can continue doing any other clicks you need to do in TransIT, and then you can just come back and click that view generated reports icon to view the report that you were attempting to generate. But otherwise, none of the reports are new reports. They're all reports that you are already familiar with. Okay, so that is everything that I was going to show you today. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I've shown that you'd like me to answer or go back over?
If you added a script to the testing or to test rounds, and then you go into scenarios and make changes to that script, does it update it in test rounds?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
If you have a script in test rounds that you've added for testing, and you go into scenarios and update the script, does it update it in test rounds?
No, you would still need to remove it and then add it back.
Okay, thank you.
And that's by design as well. Because the intention would be that you want whatever is on the dashboard to be something that you can reflect on later. So once it's added to the dashboard, it assumes that it's ready to go. And then once you start executing on it, you may decide after your round of testing that there are changes that need to be made to that scenario, but you still want to be able to reflect back and see exactly what the scenario looked like at the time that it was tested. And that's the same functionality that TransIT has always had, and that's still the same current functionality.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If there's no other questions, then I can let everybody go and you can take 20 minutes back. But of course, if you do have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Angela. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much. So remember, the takeaway is right click.
I got that one.
what I was gonna say. If all else fails, right click and see what happens.
Exactly. And then if all else fails, you can email me or email support@makesolutionsInc.com. But the reminder is that all this week, you're able to go in and play in this environment and do whatever you need to do. And that's until May 29th when we actually go live. But if you want to take a chance to kind of mess around and not worry about any issues that you or content that you kind of make that's just silly content, you're certainly welcome to do that between now and then, because it'll all go away. So you don't have to worry about it then becoming your new live content. You have this safe time to play in demo and 5.0 as much as you want before May 29th. So we certainly encourage you to do that. And if you come across anything that you need to report, please email us, because we definitely want to hear your feedback, and we definitely want to hear if there's things that aren't working for you. But if that's it, then I thank you all so much for joining me today, and hopefully I will see you all again for plans training or admin if you haven't done admin and you're an administrator.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
You're welcome.